Hello there everyone, Dice here, and welcome to the second game summary of my crew of new faces to Cyberpunk Red. Now if you haven't seen the first summary video, I have you set, don't worry, it's set up as a card above and also down in the description. What this is me giving you the rundown of the antics of 3 of my new players of Cyberpunk Red. We're running the adventure at the end of the free booklet Cyberpunk Red Easy Mode, called Getting Paid. I got that link down below too if you just want the free rules to Cyberpunk Red. Frankly, I got a lot down below, so don't worry. If you got a question, it's all in there. And as you see here, this is going to be much more easier to show you thanks to the program I'm using called TaleSpire. This should make everything smooth to follow, and I'll have the slab that I'm using linked too. So, a little backstory at least. We have Ukelele, played by Vic, Kay, played by Nick, and Mouz, played by Fezgig. We do have a 4th player who couldn't make this session too, Carmilla, played by Kira. She'll come into play later, don't worry, she's in our next session after this one. Don't know if I'm going to do a 3rd game summary, but yeah, just at least letting you know she is around, she just couldn't make a couple. So, after the last session, Laszlo, the fixer that Kay and Yuki saved, filled them in on where their actual payday was and also where the NCPD offers that jumped them were using as a setup spot. Knowing time was short, as there were 3 officers who had been pretty badly injured with one actually taken out, Kay and Yuki tracked down Mouz and got him out of his little safe room. They then began to move quick to the warehouse that Laszlo marked for them on their agents. Yuki used a taxi to kind of survey the district while Kay took a rooftop vantage point across the street. And Mouz himself was actually on the ground and around the warehouse, just kind of checking it out. He was mostly looking for cameras and things like that. Didn't find one, but he did find frames where cameras had been removed. But Mouz, discovering that a rear door to the warehouse was knocked open, quietly approached it at Kay, kind of urging him along because Kay was of course recording because he wanted the footage. Yuki had hopped out of the taxi, and he also checked the front garage door to pretty much find it locked. Mouz had actually snuck inside of the building at this point, finding it poorly lit, and he just kind of kept his handgun ready to go when he was just guarding the inside of the door. Yuki actually found his way to that same door and began loading incendiary rounds into his shotgun. After spooking Mouz when he was coming through, Yuki actually just kind of moved right into the warehouse past him. Yuki's a great example of a very proactive player for the record. The guy's a Medtech, but he plays like a solo. I love it. With Kay still watching outside on the rooftop from across the door and Mouz keeping the door inside and trying to spot any of the officers, Yuki just kind of kept sneaking in deeper and deeper into the warehouse. Now, one flaw here. They weren't really communicating and kind of went in with no plan. This, frankly, is something I love. I'm not joking. I love the screw it, let's dive in deep approach. But a little bit of talking does go a long way. It really does. I love my players, but plans. Start using them. Now after a bit, Yuki sees a pair of officers at the end of the building checking the garage door. The one that he, tried to open and shook a bit. But yeah, where he was standing, he heard the sound of another officer just around the corner on the other side of a shelf he was by. He had been extremely sneaky up to this point, doing some amazing rolls, and the officer was completely unaware to his presence. And after hearing that Kay was now coming off of the roof to come sneak inside too, he took up a position behind that shelf, held up his shotgun, and waited. The instant that officer stepped around the corner, he fired off a round and blasted the poor officer's upper torso and head with flame shot. Sneaky was on the table right up to this point, and then fire and screaming just filled the warehouse. That officer immediately starts running, on fire, and jumps through a window of a bricked-in room. Through the window and shadows, Yuki could see that there were multiple people inside there. And that's right on the point. That is where all the other officers except the 2 by the garage door were. They were hiding out in there, tending to their wounds. And one of those guys in there was already fed up with the fact that all of his buddies kept getting shot, and had grabbed something a little bit heavier. In the meantime, Yuki had actually approached the office and fired off another incendiary shot, setting ablaze some boxes outside it, kind of wanting to stoke up, a warehouse fire to try and get them smoked out. He then started running back at this point and threw a smoke grenade to give himself some cover. And to be honest, this was a lifesaver for him. Basically, that smoke grenade gave him great cover, and every officer that was looking out the window to shoot at him couldn't catch him. They couldn't see him. And even if they took the shots, they would have been doing a -4 penalty on all of them. Unknowingly saved his life, surprising all of us how effective that single smoke grenade was. While Ukelele was falling back and Mouz was screaming about how this all just went to hell in a handbasket, that officer that was pretty much fed up kicked open the office door and stepped out with a bloody assault rifle. Yuki's turn came up, and at first he was going to go in and try to blast the assault guy with the same incendiary rounds he's been using. But he had a second thought, and he realized he was in a bad spot and began to make a very hasty retreat. That's when the bullets started flying. This officer was not caring about what was between him and Yuki, shooting through cover, shattering shelves, blowing up boxes. He didn't care. He was trying to get a straight shot on Yuki, and Yuki pulled out his last smoke grenade and threw it again, covering up another point of escape he was taking. He was being brilliant with these things. And by now, the two officers that were at the door, who were, checking it out, had already begun to try and flank the back door, taking pot shots at Mouz, who had taken a defensive position. Kay had gotten inside long enough to basically say this was a bad idea, immediately about-faced, and booked it. I don't blame him. He was out the door, and Ukelele was just getting to the door as everything finally came to a head. The assault rifle-wielding officer began to fire off suppressive fire, which basically means he's scaring people into taking cover. And at the same time, the two flanking officers began blasting through the boxes and shelves that pretty much protected the door from the side that they were coming up on, and they had people behind them. The whole group of officers had basically followed all in one group as they were trying to evacuate themselves. The hurt ones were not moving too quick, but they still had guns. And once those first two officers had shredded the cover as best they could, one of those others in the back decided to take their shot. And Ukelele was unfortunately the target. That officer's handgun rolled for critical damage after scoring the hit, and he did get through his armor. A shot tore through his left bicep, shredding it as they made it out of the door. Then, they immediately booked it in different directions, just scattering, leaving the officers to pretty much have to evacuate their buddies to get them away from the fire. So, the conclusion. This was a total and absolute failure for them. They didn't get to their actual eddies. All but one officer survived, and, well, basically now, they had a $1,000 eddy bounty on each of their heads for their actions. Every single thing that could go wrong did, but none died. And Kay and Ukelele split the 10,000 counterfeit eddies, which they now have plans for. Now, there is this crew of 3 edge runners loaded with fake eddies, bounties on their heads, and reputations for killing a NCPD lieutenant and almost killing 7 others. It added a very high-stakes situation for them going forward, but I'm having some fun with it too. They also love the fact that they're wanted, and also the laughing that was had when they all went, "Nope, we're out," was amazing. I lost my voice that game. I really lost my... It was great. It was bloody great. Now, they're currently working their way one by one through each of those surviving corrupt NCPD officers. Each one got promotions for their heroic actions, and they're having to figure out how to get to them. Laszlo also put them in touch with a guy named Dan Renzer. Yes, that Dan Renzer. They don't know anything about who he is yet, except he is in the NCPD, so shush. We'll say that for another tale. Yes, that is a pun if you know what I'm talking about. If you don't worry, but you will. Hang around here long enough, you will. Now, unfortunately, Ukelele has been completely absorbed by work and he won't be joining us for future games for at least a month. We're all sad about that, but we have been playing again each week and we're getting through it. We're getting through it. I hope this has been a fun little story to take you out of your day and give you a break. And it shocks me that this was almost a month ago now too. We had a 2-week break while I had to get a few things sorted, and Nick even GM'd for everyone. It was actually pretty cool. I love the fact knowing that one of my players goes, "Hey, I'll do it. And for me, things here on YouTube are finally calming down. It's been pretty good. I'm pretty happy. I just have a few more things to sort through, like memberships and all that. Monetization hit, they made me a partner, yada yada yada. It's been nuts. And well, I wouldn't have got here if it wasn't for all of you. You've all heard me say it 1,000 times, but thank you. Now, as for the next video that's coming up, I'm going to go ahead and let you know it's going to revolve around roles and multiclassing. I've been releasing these shorts as much as I can together that are just describing the roles of Cyberpunk Red as quickly as possible because really there's not too much to go into with each, and I didn't intend to do a deep dive on each one. I've tried to avoid doing tutorials. I really have tried to avoid that. But with multiclassing, let's just say I'm going to show you guys how much you can really spin things and flavor things in Cyberpunk Red to make anything you want. And when I do say anything, I do mean anything. There's a great little supplement I'm going to be using because there's some very crazy combinations, and what comes out of it when you multiclass is great. I won't go too much into it here. This is more about my players this video than what I'm doing. So I'll see you all in the next Cyberpunk sit down. I hope you are all doing well, and I hope you all find yourselves a good table. Take care.